folks, TJ here. Atari 520ST, the original model that didn't have an internal floppy drive. Let's chat about it a little bit because this little function key is sticking a little farther up on here. I'm going to check that out. Anyway, 520ST, one computer that I started dreaming about, being an Atari person from 1980 when I had purchased my Atari 800. And then I started hearing rumbling about this new, bigger, badder Atari that's going to come out eventually. They introduced it at Comdex 1985, and it was called the Atari 520ST. The interesting thing is there's a number of models that all are called 520ST, but if you look on the back, there may be just 520ST, there may be 520STM, which is the model that I have. STFM, which is a model I think I do have, but it's really beat up and it came in some bulk buy, and I'll probably use it for parts or something and maybe hold on to the motherboard just in case kind of thing. But let's chat about the 520ST. I even have some brochures that will kind of cover it a little bit. So what is the 520ST? Well, it was Atari's first jump in to the new processor, 68,000. Moving up from the old Atari 800, this thing was going to be a beast. And they wanted to do something a little bit more powerful, a lot more powerful. A lot of the companies out there were doing the same. Even Sinclair had the QL. That was a 68,000 based processor. Although theirs is the 68008. This one was actually a little bit better. But we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. It's all in fun. There's a lot of cool 16-bit / 32-bit computers out there. The ST stands for 1632 because you have particular... It's interesting how these companies had bus speeds, CPU speed, all these different speeds, and they would normally pick the highest number from it. At least on the Atari, they called it a 16/32, and it's a 520ST. I believe they even had... But I don't remember them ever advertising it or selling it in the US. They could have. Must have been a limited if they did. The 260ST. That may be a Europe-only thing. I don't remember them ever selling them in the US. So we're going to start with the 520ST. I am happy to own the M model because this can connect to a TV also. The problem with the original Atari 520ST, it didn't. To my knowledge, there was no TV port on the back. You connected it to a monitor, and you had to also boot it up from a floppy drive. It didn't have the OS ROMs built in where you turn it on and it was there. The M model, which looks the same, did. It had it built in. You could boot up from it. And then if you wanted an external drive, of course, you needed one because otherwise you weren't going to do much with this. So you purchased a external drive, and then you had a lot of fun with it. Let's quickly cover I've got a box. I thought I had a box for the 520ST. I can't find it. I may not own it. I may have it hidden someplace. I'm not going to take 20 hours to try to find it just to say I've got a box. I don't remember I have a box. I thought I did. But I do have a box for the SF314, which is the external floppy. They came in two flavors. 360K, which was the model 354, or the 720K, which was the 314, which is the better model to have because they eventually gravitated towards most everything was coming out with more double-sided, double density, more capability. I happen to have some of the SF354s also. Not bad to have on hand just in case, but this is the one that I would typically use with the 520ST. Brochures, two very cool brochures. These are not specific for the older model that doesn't have a floppy. All the information on these is basically 520ST FM or F that had the floppy and also the 1040ST. So that was the more common, I think, that I saw in the day. But I actually find the Piquito package, meaning a little smaller, this is sharp. This little corner right here, it's going to cut my neck off. It looks a little smaller and a little tighter. The times that you don't mind saying I don't mind a little smaller. Woo! Okay, I don't want to go there. I did actually almost cut myself. We'll show the computer close up in a second. So let's read a little bit. I've got two brochures. the information is going to be fairly similar to this, other than this model, again, doesn't have an internal floppy drive. Cool brochure. I'm going to hold it right here in front of my face, but it says the Atari 520ST FM is a 68,000 processor, 8 megahertz, OS and ROM. Yes. Memory was 512K. Mass storage, disk drive, yes. Additional ones, yes. They're comparing it, by the way, to an Apple Mac 512E and an IBM PCAT 286 for the 520. And then they're comparing the 1040ST to the Apple Mac Plus. They've got a nice little comparison on the back here, which is kind of funny. I did have a friend, online friend, Amiga friend, say, you notice they never compare it to the Amiga. Which is true. I mean, Amiga and Atari both were, in my opinion, better than the Mac because it had color. We like the colors. I mean, this is not Amish land. Amish typically don't use computers. We want the colors. The Mac didn't have that, but that didn't mean I didn't want to have access to some of the Mac software and why I was an owner of a Spectre GCR. But we're not going to go there. So why didn't they compare it to the Amiga? Well, both were very similar. Amiga had some benefits and positives, as did this. Amiga didn't have built-in MIDI. Atari did. So if you were a musician, which one would you choose? The Atari. If you were into video work, the odds are you would probably choose Amiga. I like them all, but I do prefer the Atari because that's what I was raised on, and I had to pay my own money for it. I couldn't afford those dang Amigas. Anyway, let's continue reading on. Displays, monochrome. You could do 640 by 400, and in my opinion, the Atari monochrome screens, even though small, looked wonderful. And for staring at all day and doing business type of stuff that they were starting to go after a little bit more, not just gaming, like Clive Sinclair, I'm not going to say the bad word, but screw Jet Set Willie, or whatever he says, because he wanted to have a more business stuff. And I think Atari at a certain point, yes, we're all about the gaming, we love the games, but we're also good at business too. So the monochrome screen was a big yes to get if you were into the business software. But it could do the colors that the Mac couldn't. 640 by 200, a 512 color palette, 16 on-screen colors at the same time, and then they had tons of I.O. on the back, which we'll chat about. Parallel. RS-232, mouse, joystick, hard disk port, MIDI, sound voices, 3 of them, and keys, 94. So this brochure is kind of cool. It just showed you a nice 1040ST on the front, a whole bunch of eye candy in the middle. We love the candy in the middle. And then on the back was some comparisons showing some things that you could also get. Comparisons and then other peripherals and stuff. So cool brochure. I also have this little nifty brochure that's a little smaller and kind of came looking like this, but then it opened up like this, and then inside it had a lot of eye candy and comparisons and fun stuff, and it even had some prices things here that you could fill out. So I guess if you were at the store and wanted to take some notes before you purchased, which is I did. When I bought my Mega 2 ST, I didn't buy it that day. I went home, studied my brochures, figured it out, and then went back, drove an hour and a half back to get it. So that's the brochures. Let's, I'll get this out of there. Big old brick power supply. So like my Mega 2, that you basically just have any old run-of-the-mill $3 power cord that plugs in to any device in the world, mostly, other than the old ones. That was cool. This doesn't have that. This has the round type of connector that was specific for this computer. So this is a big old brick power supply. It does have the Atari logo on it, which is cool. But yeah, this was a behemoth that you could stick under the counter. Fortunately, they did give you a decent amount of cable length, which is cool. I don't want to scuff up my computer. I don't like chips and scuffs. Mouse, tank mouse. I call any of these mouses tank. I don't know if that's technically the word, but I always loved the Atari aesthetics. I think the Ataris looked awesome. And I like the mouse. Floppy we'll show quickly. This floppy is dated 1986. Probably the one that would have came with a 520ST at the time. And I happen to have that. Like I said, I think I have a box, but I don't know. External floppy. Very nice and lightweight. Stick floppy in the front. Looks good. The back has in and out, so you can connect extra to it, which was cool. This came in handy when I was doing my Spectre GCR, having an internal floppy and an external going because the Mac every 2 seconds, I need a floppy. I need a floppy. Not this. You turn this on and the computer was on in seconds. Loved it. 520ST. Looks wonderful. Nice big keyboard. Extended numeric keypad. Atari 520ST. Love the function key still. External. Little diagonal cut to them. This side has a cartridge port. What do you plug in there? Spectre GCR. Become a Mac. Jackintosh. Mouse and joystick port. Bottom. Your typical bottom. Some look better than others. And then on the back. Let's look at the back. All sorts of portage. Reset button. Power button. Power cord plugs in here. Modem, MIDI out, MIDI in. TV port, channel selector so you can go high or low. Monitor, printer, modem, floppy disk, and hard drive. All on the back of this big old computer. Although it's a little smaller than your other 520 ST FM and 1040 ST FM. Did they have FM for that? Yeah, I think so, a 1040 ST. Anyway, that's it. I think this video will wrap it up. So, nice 520. I'll connect it up to my TV, try to load up something from an external floppy and just to see what it looks like. And we'll do that in another video. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm glad to own one of the more earlier models of the 520 without the floppy. I think it looks great, and it's a fun computer to have. Thanks for watching. Bye. Hear the dog barking? Bark, bark, bark. It's about dinner time. I gotta go feed the dogs.